In this video, I challenge the illusion that your life is a series of random accidents by decoding the hidden numerical blueprint of your birth date. But be warned, this ancient mathematical code reveals not just your ultimate destiny, but your darkest, most terrifying shadows. If I fail to understand the depth of this system, I risk living my entire life trapped in a painful cycle of failure that I didn't even know was programmed into my existence from the very first day I took a breath. Think about the day you were born. You did not choose it. Your parents may think they planned it, but universal timing is infinitely more precise than human intention. We walk through life believing that every choice is entirely our own, yet we repeatedly crash into the same invisible walls. We suffer the same heartbreaks, we face the same financial ruin, and we battle the same paralyzing anxieties. Because we are desperate for control, we blame ourselves, carrying a crushing weight of guilt and inadequacy. But what if none of those struggles were actually your fault? What if they were an invisible curriculum etched into the cosmos on the exact day you entered this world? This is the forbidden truth of numerology, a science of frequencies disguised as simple arithmetic. Pythagoras, the father of mathematics, believed that the universe was built on the vibration of numbers. Therefore, the date of your birth is not a random stamp on a certificate. It is the unique energetic coordinate of your soul. When I first discovered this, I was incredibly skeptical. I viewed myself as a rational person, entirely governed by logic. But when my life began to mysteriously fall apart, when my career stagnated, my relationships crumbled, and a deep, suffocating emptiness took hold, I realized my logic was failing me. Because I had hit rock bottom, I was finally vulnerable enough to look beyond what I could see. I calculated my life path number, the foundational pillar of numerology, derived by adding every single digit of my birth date until it reduced to a single number. The result was a revelation so piercingly accurate that it felt violently intrusive. It exposed my deepest insecurities and named the exact fears I had spent decades hiding from the world. It showed me that I was fighting against my own nature. Therefore, to change my reality, I had to stop swimming upstream against the current of my cosmic design. The birth date is a master key, and today we are going to use it to unlock the doors you have been desperately banging against for years. Are you ready to discover who you were actually meant to be?
To understand how deeply your birth date shapes your existence, we must first shatter the greatest illusion sold to us by modern society. Thing we want, do anything we desire, and mold our destinies with sheer willpower. Because we internalize this romantic notion, we constantly push ourselves to fit into molds that were never meant for us. We chase careers that look impressive on paper, we pursue relationships that satisfy societal checklists, and we force ourselves into rigid routines. But when we inevitably fail or feel profoundly empty despite our achievements, we experience a devastating psychological collapse. We believe we are broken. Therefore, the introduction of the life path number is not just a mathematical exercise, it is an act of profound emotional rescue. By simply adding the month, day, and year of your birth, you uncover a singular digit that acts as the unchangeable operating system of your life. Imagine buying a high-performance sports car and trying to use it as a cargo truck. It will stall, it will break down, and it will seem like a terrible machine. But the flaw is not in the design. The flaw is in the application. Your life path number dictates the terrain you were built to navigate. If you are a life path 1, you are designed for solitary leadership and relentless innovation. Because you are built to stand alone, you will naturally face intense periods of isolation and fierce opposition. But instead of seeing this as a sign of greatness, you might internalize this rejection as unlovability. If you are a life path 2, you are a master of harmony and deep partnership. Therefore, you will be repeatedly tested by conflict and emotional vampires who seek to drain your empathy. The struggles you have cursed your entire life are not random punishments from a cruel universe. They are the exact resistance training required to build the specific spiritual muscles your life path demands. Once you calculate your number, the chaotic puzzle pieces of your past suddenly snap into brutal, clarifying focus. The jobs you lost, the friendships that faded, the specific types of betrayals you endured, they all form a perfect, undeniable pattern. You begin to see that you were never a victim of circumstance. You were a student in a highly specialized academy, and your birth date is the syllabus. The question is no longer, why is this happening to me, but rather, what is this number trying to teach me?
While the standard digits from 1 to 9 encompass the vast majority of human experiences, there is a hidden, volatile tier of numerology that carries incredibly high stakes, the master numbers. If your birth date calculations reduce to an 11, a 22, or a 33, you do not simply have a life path, you have a cosmic mandate. Because these numbers are not reduced to single digits, they carry double the vibrational frequency of standard numbers. But this extraordinary potential comes with a terrifying, crushing weight. To hold a master number is to live with a nervous system plugged directly into the raw, unfiltered electricity of the universe. Therefore, individuals born under these codes often suffer from debilitating anxiety, profound existential dread, and a persistent, haunting feeling that they are failing to achieve some massive, undefined purpose. The master number 11 is the intuitive, illuminated soul, acting as a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. Because an 11 can literally feel the unspoken thoughts and hidden traumas of everyone in a room, they are frequently overwhelmed, prone to sudden isolation and intense nervous tension. But if they can master their sensitivity, they become world-changing visionaries. The master number 22 is the master builder. This is the architect of reality, capable of turning the wildest, most impossible dreams into concrete, global empires. Yet, the sheer scale of their vision can be paralyzing. Because they subconsciously know the magnitude of what they are supposed to accomplish, a 22 will often self-sabotage, retreating into mediocrity simply because the pressure of their own potential is too terrifying to face. And then there is the 33, the master teacher and the avatar of unconditional love. They are burdened with the impossible task of healing a broken world. Therefore, they constantly attract broken people, enduring immense personal heartbreak to learn the true depths of compassion. If you possess a master number, society's common enemy, the desire for a normal, quiet, easy life, becomes your greatest trap. You will never be completely happy working a standard 9 to 5, living for the weekends and ignoring the burning fire in your chest. The universe will not allow it. It will send crisis after crisis to wake you up, destroying your comfortable routines until you have no choice but to step into your power. Embracing a master number requires ultimate vulnerability, a willingness to stand completely exposed and declare that you are here to change the world, even when you feel entirely unqualified to do so. As we dive deeper into the architecture of your birth date, we uncover a terrifyingly accurate diagnostic tool known as the karmic debt and the missing numbers. It is human nature to focus on what we have, but in numerology, the empty spaces in your birth grid are often far more powerful than the numbers present. These missing digits represent the lessons your soul completely failed to learn in past existences. Because you ignored these vital experiences before, you are born into this lifetime with a severe, almost magnetic deficit. But nature abhors a vacuum. Therefore, the universe will aggressively and repeatedly throw you into agonizing situations designed specifically to force you to develop these missing traits. Imagine your birth grid as a psychological fortress. The missing numbers are the gaping holes in your walls where your enemies will always strike. If your birth date is entirely missing the number 4, for example, you lack the foundational frequency of discipline and stability. Because you are naturally averse to structure, you may be brilliantly creative, but you will constantly struggle to bring your ideas into reality. You will experience a terrifying cycle of building things up only to watch them collapse due to a lack of solid foundation. If you are missing the number 6, the number of domestic harmony and responsibility, you will find yourself in a chaotic loop of toxic relationships, constantly giving your heart to people who drain you, desperately seeking the family structure you struggle to create. The emotional pain of these missing numbers is profound. We look at others who effortlessly maintain wealth, boundaries, or stable marriages, and we feel a deep, rotting shame, wondering why we are uniquely cursed to fail in these specific areas over and over again. But this is the crucial turning point. When you identify your missing numbers, the shame evaporates. You are not broken. You are simply unpracticed. This realization shifts the entire narrative from victimhood to active mastery. However, the stakes escalate when we introduce karmic debt numbers 13, 14, 16, and 19. If these specific numbers appear in your calculations, they indicate a severe abuse of power, love, or freedom in a past cycle. The karmic debt of 16, for instance, is the debt of the shattered ego. Because you once built your life on arrogance and deceit, the universe will repeatedly tear down your false towers. You will face sudden, shocking losses that force you to rebuild your life on a foundation of absolute humility and spiritual truth. The missing numbers are the ultimate open loop of your destiny, setting the stage for the greatest challenges of your life.
While the life path number paints the broad strokes of your destiny, there is a much more intimate, secret frequency hidden within your birth date, the soul urge. Also known as the heart's desire, this number bypasses all your external armor and peers directly into the most vulnerable, naked core of who you truly are. Your life path is the road you must walk, but your soul urge is the reason you keep walking. It is the unquenchable thirst, the secret craving that you rarely admit even to yourself. Because society demands conformity, we spend decades meticulously crafting a persona. We become the responsible employee, the dependable parent, the practical citizen. But beneath this carefully constructed mask, the soul urge beats like a captive bird throwing itself against the bars of a cage. Therefore, a massive, agonizing disconnect occurs. When your external life does not align with your soul urge, you experience a creeping, insidious depression that no amount of money, status, or therapy can seemingly cure. You look at your life on paper and it appears perfect, yet you feel entirely dead inside. This is the tragedy of a starved soul. Imagine a person whose societal role demands logic, ruthlessness, and corporate climbing, but their soul urge is a deeply sensitive number 6, crying out for domestic peace, artistic creation, and nurturing love. Because they suppress this gentle urge to survive in a cutthroat environment, their internal conflict manifests as physical illness, chronic fatigue, and intense resentment. They are winning a game they secretly hate playing. But the moment you calculate and acknowledge your soul urge, a profound emotional release occurs. It is like finally being seen by the universe. You suddenly understand why certain mundane things make you irrationally angry, and why specific, seemingly impractical dreams bring tears to your eyes. The soul urge demands ultimate vulnerability, because honoring it often means disappointing the people around you. It requires you to stop living for the applause of the matrix and start feeding the sacred fire within. If your soul urge is a number 5, you are dying for freedom, travel, and chaotic adventure, and that desk job is literally suffocating your spirit. If it is an 8, you secretly desire massive wealth and authority, and you must stop apologizing for your ambition. Recognizing your soul urge is the only way to cure the modern epidemic of spiritual emptiness and step into authentic joy. At this point in our journey through the numbers, we must confront the ultimate common enemy, the suffocating, standardized timeline imposed upon us by a deeply unconscious society. From a young age, we are indoctrinated into a rigid script. Go to school, graduate by 22, marry by 27, buy a house by 30, and retire at 65. Because this script is enforced by our parents, our peers, and our culture, we accept it as the absolute measure of human success. But numerology shatters this mechanical timeline, exposing it as a toxic fiction designed to keep us disconnected from our true, individual rhythms. The universe does not operate on a corporate fiscal year. It breathes through deeply personal mathematical cycles determined strictly by your birth date. Therefore, when we force ourselves to hit society's milestones at the wrong numerical time, we invite absolute disaster. Have you ever noticed how someone can do everything perfectly by the book, yet their business mysteriously bankrupts, their marriage suddenly dissolves, and their health deteriorates? Meanwhile, someone else takes massive illogical risks and effortlessly strikes gold. The difference is not luck, it is alignment with their personal numerical cycles. Because we are ignorant of our own energetic seasons, we constantly plant seeds in the dead of winter and wonder why nothing grows. We push for massive career expansions during a deeply introspective year 7, leading to burnout and public failure. We desperately try to hold on to dying relationships during a year 9, creating agonizing, drawn-out trauma instead of a clean, necessary release. This societal pressure creates an overwhelming sense of anxiety. We look at our friends who are achieving milestones and we panic, feeling like we are falling behind in a race. But numerology teaches us that there is no race. You are on a completely isolated track, governed by your unique birth date algorithm. When you finally map out your personal cycles, the relief is staggering. You realize that your delays were actually protections. That period of intense stagnation where nothing seemed to work out, it was a mathematically programmed resting phase, a year 4 designed to force you to build internal foundations before the massive expansion of year 5. By rejecting the societal timeline and surrendering to your numerological calendar, you stop fighting the current. You become a master of timing, moving with the terrifying, beautiful precision of the cosmos, completely liberated from the artificial pressures of the world.
To truly master the algorithm of your birth date, you must understand the concept of personal years, the 9-year cyclical heartbeat of your entire existence. Every single year, starting from the exact day of your birth, you step into a new energetic frequency that completely dictates the themes, challenges, and opportunities of the next 12 months. Because we are usually blind to these shifting tides, life feels like a chaotic roller coaster. We experience years of brilliant, effortless success, followed immediately by periods of crushing, inexplicable loss. But when you overlay the 9-year cycle onto your past, the seemingly random chaos transforms into a flawless, predictable mathematical wave. The cycle begins with personal year 1, a brutal but exhilarating period of absolute rebirth. It is a time to forcefully plant new seeds, but because it demands fierce independence, it often requires cutting ties with people and habits that kept you safe. Therefore, year 1 is incredibly lonely, but absolutely vital. As we move through the cycle, the energy shifts. Year 4 brings harsh discipline and restriction, forcing you to organize your life. Year 5 shatters that structure entirely, bringing chaos, sudden travel, sexual awakening, and massive risks. But the most universally feared and misunderstood phase is the personal year 9. This is the year of endings, karma, and the great purge. Because humanity is terrified of letting go, year 9 feels like an absolute tragedy. Jobs are lost, marriages end, and long-standing friendships violently implode. The universe acts as a ruthless landlord, evicting anything from your life that does not serve your next 9-year evolution. But we fight it. We cling desperately to the dying relationships and the unfulfilling careers. Therefore, the more we resist the purge, the more agonizing the year 9 becomes. It will drag you through the mud until your fingers break and you are forced to let go. When I finally mapped my own cycles, the realization hit me like a physical blow. The absolute worst, most devastating year of my life, the year I lost everything and nearly gave up, was an exact year 9. I wasn't being punished. I was being violently emptied out so that I could be rebuilt. Understanding your personal year gives you the ultimate superpower, foresight. You no longer panic when the winter comes because you know the exact date the spring will return, and you understand the necessity of the falling leaves.
Hidden within the intricate folds of your birth date is a dark mirror, a mathematical reflection of your deepest flaws, known as the challenge numbers. While the life path dictates your mission, The challenge numbers expose the precise psychological shadows that will attempt to sabotage you at every turn. Because these numbers are calculated by subtracting the digits of your birth date rather than adding them, they represent the valleys, the voids, and the friction points of your soul. We are deeply terrified of our own shadows. We spend our lives projecting our insecurities onto our partners, our bosses, and society at large, convinced that the world is out to get us. But the painful truth revealed by numerology is that the enemy is entirely an inside job. Therefore, your challenge numbers act as hyper-specific psychological triggers. If your primary challenge number is a 2, your shadow is plagued by hypersensitivity and a crippling fear of judgment. Because you are terrified of conflict, you will chronically people-please, entirely abandoning your own boundaries until you erupt in toxic passive-aggressive resentment. If your challenge is a 0, you face the abyss. You are burdened with the challenge of all challenges, the belief that you are fundamentally alone in a hostile universe. You will struggle with deep existential apathy, constantly battling the nihilistic voice that whispers, nothing you do actually matters. Confronting these numbers requires a level of emotional vulnerability that most people will spend a lifetime running from. It requires you to look at your worst behavioral loops, the addictions, the temper tantrums, the self-sabotage, and trace them back to a mathematical certainty programmed into your birth. But this realization is not meant to be a life sentence. It is meant to be an exact psychological diagnosis. A doctor cannot cure a disease until it is named. By naming your exact challenge, you strip away its mysterious power over you. Therefore, when the familiar shadow begins to rise in your mind, you can step back and recognize it not as a fundamental flaw in your character, but as the specific cosmic hurdle you were literally born to jump over. You stop hating yourself for your weaknesses, and you begin the intense, holy work of transmuting your darkest lead into pure spiritual gold, rewriting the tragic script of your inner shadow.
Now, we must connect the dots and close the agonizing loop regarding our relationships, the missing numbers, and the heartbreaking cycles of love and betrayal. Early on, I mentioned that there is a specific numerical phenomenon that virtually guarantees heartbreak and chaos, and it centers entirely on energetic matching. Because every single person is a walking mathematical equation, every relationship is a collision of 2 distinct numeric frequencies. We do not fall in love by accident. We fall in love because our souls are desperately trying to fill in the missing numbers in our own birth grids. If you are entirely missing the number 3, the number of joyful expression and communication, you will be magnetically, almost dangerously drawn to a person who possesses an abundance of 3s. In the beginning, this feels like a fairy tale. They bring the exact light, laughter, and emotional freedom that your soul has been starved of for lifetimes. But this is the ultimate trap of the universe. Because you are using them as an energetic crutch to avoid developing your own missing numbers, the relationship eventually becomes profoundly suffocating. They grow exhausted by your emotional density, and you grow resentful of their chaotic energy. Therefore, the very trait that attracted you to them becomes the exact weapon that destroys the relationship. We repeat this cycle relentlessly. We marry our missing numbers, we fight with our missing numbers, and we are divorced by our missing numbers. We end up financially ruined by business partners who possess the exact karmic deficits we fail to recognize. The heartbreak is not a failure of love, it is a violent correction by the universe. The cosmos shatters the relationship to force you to generate that missing frequency yourself, rather than harvesting it from another human being. When you analyze the birth dates of your most painful ex-partners or toxic friends, the revelation is absolutely chilling. You will see the exact mathematical lock and key of your shared trauma. The overlaps and the deficits will map out every single argument and every betrayal with terrifying precision. Numerology removes the blinding fog of romanticism and replaces it with the cold, illuminating light of spiritual truth. You cannot find your missing half in another person. You must calculate your voids, face your karmic debts, and become numerically whole on your own.
We have journeyed through the foundational pillars, the hidden shadows, and the cyclical tides encoded within your birth date. We have challenged the illusion of randomness and confronted the terrifying reality that our struggles, our pains, and our destinies were sketched into the stars the moment we took our first breath. Because we have been conditioned to see life as a chaotic struggle against the unknown, this level of predetermined structure can initially feel deeply overwhelming. But understanding your numerological blueprint is not a surrender to fatalism. It is the ultimate emancipation. You are not a victim of a cruel, randomized universe. You are the lead actor in a perfectly written cosmic drama, and you have finally been handed the script. Therefore, every tear you have cried, every failure that kept you awake at night, and every rejection that broke your heart was not a mistake. It was a mathematically necessary step in the precise calibration of your soul. The universe never wastes a single drop of your pain. When you truly integrate this knowledge, the heavy, suffocating armor of guilt and confusion simply falls away. You stop trying to force yourself into the rigid, soulless boxes designed by a sick society. You finally give yourself the permission to be the strange, complex, beautiful equation you were always meant to be. If your numbers demand isolation and visionary creation, you take to the mountains. If your numbers demand global leadership, you step onto the stage without apology. The stakes could not be higher. If you close this video and return to sleepwalking through your life, ignoring the mathematical rhythm of your soul, you will continue to crash into the same invisible walls. You will live a life that belongs to someone else. But if you have the courage to calculate your truth, everything changes today. Do not let the matrix dictate your timeline for one more second. Dive into the absolute depths of your birth date. Uncover your life path, confront your missing numbers, and prepare for the ultimate transformation. To discover the exact codes hidden in your birth date and generate your complete, uncensored numerological blueprint, visit numeralpath.com right now. The universe is speaking to you in the language of numbers. It is time you finally learned how to listen.